Hey guys, welcome to Platitube. Today we're going to talk about war and weapons and really how the development of weapons and new technologies in weapons has actually changed the face of war throughout the 20th century and throughout American history specifically. So I kind of want to start you off with right at the tail end of the 19th century, turn of the 20th century. We have the Spanish-American War, and Americans are have always been isolationists, and so their fighting styles are very untrained. And what the Spanish-American War has taught us is that even with traditional fighting styles where people were in battle lines and there were huge strategies around where to put which lines, and we were wholly ill-equipped. We went down to Cuba in leftover army uniforms from the Civil War, and that means that they were wool. So imagine being in Cuba in a wool uniform. That just sounds awful. We had major influences of a man called Alfred T. Mahan. He writes a book, The Influence of Sea Power Upon History, and it really highlights the importance of being a naval power. And so Teddy Roosevelt, who was Assistant Secretary of Navy at the time of the Spanish-American War, and then he leaves it so he can go be a Rough Rider, and I don't know if he went like this to be a Rough Rider, but that's what I do. But he was heavily influenced by the idea of the naval power. So when Teddy Roosevelt becomes president at the turn of the century, he really leads the charge in creating a huge naval power for the United States. Now, this becomes key because 15 years later, World War I breaks out. And we kind of need a naval power to combat against the Germans' development of the Unterseeboot, or the U-boat, the submarine. And it helps us and it hurts us because we are not prepared to deal with submarines, but at least we are making our way towards that, right? But probably the biggest change with World War I is going to be the idea of trench warfare. Now, trench warfare, it basically takes those traditional battle lines and instead takes them underground. We dig trenches so that the battle lines can have some defense of the earth. But this does lead to the development of new weaponry, and it's a game changer. World War I is a game changer when it comes to the face of war. It causes entire literary movements because of it. So because of trench warfare, we develop tanks. Now, there is an argument, I think still to this day, on who actually developed the first working tank, whether it was the British or the German. Most evidence shows that it was the Germans because, well, Germans, they don't play around when it comes to creating weaponry or implements of war. So tanks are basically built to cross over the trenches to get across what is called no man's land, to go from one trench to the other and try and use the implements attached to the tank to protect against major long-range artillery as you cross what's called no man's land. And no man's land is that space above ground or on the surface between the two different trench systems of the two sides. And it's usually pockmarked, and there's no trees, and it's mud, and it's water, and it's awful, and dead bodies, and it stinks, and it's horrible. But the tanks just kind of roll right over all of that, and they can take a beating. Another reason that trench warfare had to even be put into place, however, was because of the development of machine guns. And the development just happened really quickly. Like, we had technically machine guns going into World War I, but they had to be manned. One gun had to be manned by 4 to 6 men. And they would easily overheat. So technically, you're supposed to get 300 to 600 rounds from the one gun. But about 100 rounds in, it would overheat, and you would have to cool it down. You would have to let it dry. Otherwise, it was a nightmare. There were serious burns from the use of these old school machine guns. Now, throughout World War I, and World War I was only, like 4 years long, okay? 1914 to 1918. And between that time, from 1914 to 1918, we went to this clunky, overheating mess of a machine gun to where people were like, that's not even a viable option at all, to a one-man portable machine gun. Now, what's going to happen in this progression, we have the Lewis Light, which will be manned by 2 people, sometimes 3, but it tries to address the overheating issue. It tries to address the clunky issue, and what the Germans do is they basically create these bunkers to set up almost a permanent station for the machine guns to shoot out and to try and get into the trenches. Anytime somebody peeks out over the top, you can just spray them with a line of bullets. It removes the necessity for accuracy. You just basically you have to create a barrage. And so out of that, we also have, from the Lewis Light, we go to the Bergmann, and that will be the one-man portable. And I say portable because it wasn't, I wouldn't say that you could walk no man's land just spraying into the trenches. It was not that kind of portable, but you could, pack it up and move it from one place to the next, set it back up, and have one man be able to take care of it. We also, dealing with trench warfare, we have long-range artillery. Now, cannons have been around for forever, right? But World War I changes the face of what a cannon can do. They make them bigger, they make them stronger, they make them hit harder. But again, World War I was not about accuracy. World War I was about mass casualty. So these heavy artillery cannons were built to just decimate huge areas. They didn't care who was there. They didn't care what was going on. People just had to be there. And so probably the most famous from World War I is the Paris gun, and reportedly it was supposed to, you put it on the rail line, and you basically use it as you use the train system, the rail system, to get the gun to within, I think it's like 90 miles of Paris, and then you shoot it off. Now, are we expecting accuracy from 90 miles away? Heck no. No way. Not expecting that at all. But if it hits any part of Paris, success, right? So, yes, that was what it was built for. Also, the cannons were built for major, like a barrage. Again, that's the word, barrage. Because mass casualties, you must kill as many people as possible. I don't know why I started to sound like the Terminator, but I did. Anyway, we have airplanes that come out in World War I. At first, both airplanes and dirigibles, like blimps, were used for intel, for reconnaissance. But by the end of it, they started mounting machine guns to the airplanes, and then you would have air fights. And you had some major pilots that would come out of World War I. You had chemical warfare. Holy crap, this changes the face of war. Chemical warfare was not very effective as far as killing people, but it was effective in that it changed people's approach to war from that point forward. So common uses were tear gas, not meant to kill, just meant to incapacitate, to get them to stop shooting at you long enough for you to get away or for you to kill them. You had mustard gas. Probably the most effective of the gases used, because while it did not kill its victims, usually, in large enough doses, of course, it would be fatal, but its purpose was to cause respiratory issues. It caused blisters. It caused eyes to swell shut, because basically what mustard gas does is it's looking for any kind of liquid or And so if you breathe it in, think about all the liquid in your body, in your mouth, in your eyes, in your lungs. It goes after your bronchial, and it dries all of that out to where you can't breathe, you can't see. I mean, it's just awful. It causes blisters. It's rough. And the best part, meaning the most effective part about mustard gas, is it was dense, so it would sink down to the ground, and it would kind of infect the soil, and it would stick around for weeks. So you'd have to, bomb or grenade, a mustard gas grenade, one area, and it would stay there, and it could potentially, if you upset the soil, you could potentially gas your people gas your opponents or your enemies being nowhere near where they are, which, that's dangerous, right? Also developed were chlorine gas and phosgene gas, and oftentimes they would put them together. Now, these two are deadly, but they sunk to the ground because they were very heavy, so really the only way you could avoid them was all you had to do was stand up, just kind of peek out. But that's kind of what they wanted, because then they would use the other weapons that they had to shoot your brains out. Yes, it's a very, very bloody, bloody war. We had flamethrowers. Of course, we had gas masks to go along with the new chemical warfare. Flamethrowers, though, are probably my favorite. One, because I'm a pyromaniac, and two, because they were probably the most ineffective weapon that comes out of World War I. All you have to do is shoot the gas tank that's attached to the flamethrower's back, and boom, they become a bomb. A walking, talking bomb. Yes. Now, what ends up happening in World War I is that these trenches and these weapons create such a stalemate that by World War II, tacticians realize that trenches are an ineffective way to approach war. And so some of these weapons become a little less effective in this new form of war, but others become far more effective. So one of the things that really becomes huge for World War II are going to be airplanes, and they're going to essentially lead the charge in what we call air raids. And air raids are so much more effective than many of the other methods. I'm not saying that we don't still have trenches in World War II, but they aren't as big. We have to change kind of our approach to war because of this. We move away from lines completely. We don't have battle lines, we have battle fronts, meaning that we don't stay in those gentlemanly battle lines anymore. We move as a unit. Military people move as a unit. Not we. I've never been in the military, but the military people move in units, and they inch forward in a little bit of way. From one and then two, and then and everyone's covering each other. It's kind of a game of leapfrog, right? So, but then battle lines, battle fronts. It doesn't matter. All of that is eradicated. Any form of traditional fighting style of what we're used to from the 19th century changes because of the atomic bomb. Because then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are, because it decimates not just part of a city, but entire cities, entire populations just wiped out. So this really changes everything. And people, military tacticians are kind of at a loss. How do you combat against an atomic bomb? Holy crapola. And of course, we now have a different kind of war. We have a war of spies, Cold War, so to speak. So we're at a loss. And then we go to war in Korea, and we still try some old traditional stuff, but really we just use the threat of the atomic bomb to kind of end the war, because technically we're still at war with Korea, right? And then we go to Vietnam. And in the Vietnam, we encounter a fighting style we had never really planned, prepped for at all. So we went in very heavy-handed. We went in tough stuff. We've got atomic bombs against this underdeveloped country who just had a lot of people. I mean, some of them fighting with pitchforks. Literally, people fighting with pitchforks beat us. How did they beat us? Surely we should have won. And if you look at it just from the numbers standpoint, which a lot of military historians do, We did win. We did win in Vietnam. We killed more people. Fewer Americans died in Vietnam than Vietnamese. So, yay, we won. But we didn't, right? Not really, because our goal was to eradicate communism, and we didn't do that. No, did not do that. But what we encountered when we got there was this heavy carpeted rainforest. First of all, not an environment that we had ever fought in, ever. Holy crap. You're talking about monsoons. You're talking about, huge overgrown forests. You're talking about insects that we've never encountered and diseases that these insects bring, and we don't know what the H to do, right? So, and then we realize that these Vietnamese are fighting in a very guerrilla-style fashion that we have never encountered before either. They are digging tunnels, and I don't mean trenches, I mean legit tunnels, a legit, complicated, intricate system of tunnels that we can't combat against because we don't know what they are, because all of the openings to these tunnels, you have to know where they are to know where they go, but everything's covered in forest. So what we do instead is we decide to develop chemical warfare again. We decide to pick this back up, and this time we're going to use defoliants, is what we're going to call them. It seems so nice, right? But they're actually quite vicious and horrible. One is Agent Orange, and that's basically this defoliant that's used to, kill all of the plants in the area. But what it also does is it kills all the people if you inhale it. It has cancerous attributes. It causes cancer, basically. And I don't mean just the people who are around when it went off. I'm talking about the people who developed it, the people who built the bomb, the Agent Orange bombs, all of it. The other one is napalm. Napalm is a byproduct of gasoline production, of petroleum. It's like a really dirty petroleum jelly almost. And basically they would just drop a bomb, all of this petroleum jelly stuff would attach itself to the trees and then would light on fire, and it would burn and burn and burn and burn and burn until everything was gone. So that's a way to do it, right? We're going to destroy an entire country so that we can figure out the tunnel systems so that we can beat these people. But we didn't do that either. That didn't work out for us. And we realize it doesn't work out for us. And the larger that the United States got, the more enemies that we made. 1980s to present, a whole new thing changes the face of war for us. And it's the idea of terrorism. Because so many smaller countries know that they cannot beat us in a head-to-head fight. Not really, not without decimating huge sections of their population and their country and just really being willing to sacrifice your entire country and all your people. That's the only way that you're going to win against us. And is that really winning? So instead, it becomes a fight of terrorism. And now you have old school weapons that are being used, like small scale, in civilian areas. Like the suicide bombers, we're talking about small bombs. We're talking about small artillery that's being used. They're bringing in old school stuff to combat against us, because what are we going to do? We're going to drop an atomic bomb on the entire Middle East? You can't do that. That would be horrible. And so instead, we have to develop a new form of fighting. And so that's why we have stealth bombers, and we have drones, and we have pinpointed weaponry attacks. So now we're having to revert back to like old school style warfare, but adding the idea of long distance. So what does all this have to do with your tennis ball cannon lab? Now, remember, cannons are they're kind of a thing of the past. We don't like set up heavy artillery and shoot cannons at each other anymore, but we do attach cannons to tanks. And here's where it's important, because we need, and we do still use tanks, we need to figure out how are we going to make heavy artillery, the power of heavy artillery, that is light, portable, that is accurate, not just I am going to shoot for an entire city and pray to God I hit something. No. Accurate. Accuracy is key. So how do we figure that out? How do we use gas laws? How do we use what we know in physics and in chemistry and everything to create accuracy, maximum damage, minimum casualty? Does that make sense? So that's what you need to figure out. Not today, and please don't try it in school. But I look forward to seeing what some of your ideas are. Okay.